time, we've been redesigning the program literally from ground up. So the whole program has been rethought. And really what we wanted to do is try to align it with the charter. And so ASU's charter is shown here. It's a comprehensive public research university, measured not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes and how they succeed, advancing research and discovery of public value, and assuming fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the community it serves. So our question was, how do we relate that charter to our program? How do we become inclusive and have impact? So our graduate program is a STEM designated M.Arch. We prepare students for the practice of architecture and more broadly based interdisciplinary career paths. It's a professional program, meaning that it's accredited by NAB, which is the National Architectural Accrediting Board, and it's designed to support students to enroll in architecture plus another degree or certificate, and I'll talk a bit more about what that means. First, I want to mention, as I said, I'm relatively new to the Valley, and what I've found here is that there's an incredible diversity of ways of being architect, right? So when I went to school, I left school, I went into a pretty traditional practice, and today the practice has completely changed. We're much more integrated. There's lots of different roles, lots of different sizes, and these are just a few folks who I've met in the Valley who are really changing architecture. Karine Santiago is an ASU graduate. She owns her own office. Martha Abbott is a local architect who runs the Gensler office, which is the largest architecture practice in the world. She runs the Phoenix office. Wanda Dalla Costa is a Cree Nation licensed architect who's also a professor at ASU. Diane Jacobs, also an adjunct professor, runs a studio called Holly Street Studio, a small office. Eddie and Neil Jones moved here about 40 years ago, and both trained as an architect. Eddie is the designer, and Neil runs the practice. So he's trained as an architect, but he actually runs the practice. Lorenzo Perez is a Phoenician local who went to ASU and now runs an office that does development, construction, and design, the whole gamut. So that's another way of being architect. Andy Burns runs Construction Zone, which is a design build office. And Steve Jordan, who is also born and raised in Phoenix, played professional football for a number of years, and now he works at a national level for Ryan Companies, which is a very really interesting practice that's completely integrated. He's based here in Phoenix. The base of that office is in Minneapolis. So there's lots of ways of being architect. And so how you may follow your path it's really an open question. So who teaches at ASU? We have a diversity of faculty, from practicing architects to theoreticians and historians, whole range of folks. And so when students arrive to ASU, they have a variety of different voices in the classroom and in the studio. We have 3 graduate programs. Our M.Arch 3-year track, which is for a student who comes in with a degree that's not related to architecture. We have an M.Arch 2-year track, which is for undergraduate students who have a degree in architecture, landscape architecture, or interior design, something in the allied fields. And then we have an M.Arch, which is a 1-year. It's not professional, meaning it doesn't allow you to sit for exams in the US. And the degree, your bachelor's should be from an allied field, again, architecture or interiors, etc. And the M.Arch focus is really on energy. So it's a 1-year project-based research degree. So I'm going to walk through the curriculum a little bit. And as I said, we've redesigned the curriculum recently. And the idea of the curriculum is really to allow students to take a degree in architecture plus something else. And so the first year of the 3-year track has a studio in the fall, a studio in the spring, and then courses in visualization, technology, and history. The second year, which would be the first year of the 2-year track, also includes 2 studios, one in the fall and one in the spring, and then courses in visualization, history, theory, and technology. And then the final year, again, continues with 2 studios in the fall and spring, and then courses in research, theory, practice, and technology. So if you're in the 2-year track, you'd start in Studio 3. If you're in the 3-year track, you start in Studio 1. We've sort of conceptualized the years as the first year is iteration, the second year is integration, and the third year is innovation. And what this does is it allows space in students' schedules so that they can take architecture plus something else. So they could take extra coursework. The unit count for a typical semester is 12 units, which it allows students to take other courses. And we've really been mapping out different ways in which students can matriculate so that a student could take a degree in architecture plus real estate, architecture plus construction, architecture plus sustainability. And that's really the point of the redesign, was to leverage what's happening already at ASU. And a number of our students are doing this. Niti graduated last year with a degree in architecture plus construction management. Abdullah graduated with a degree in architecture plus sustainability. Selena graduated with a degree in architecture and community solutions. Nathan graduated with a degree in architecture plus a certificate in biomimicry. Holly graduated with a degree in architecture plus real estate development. Namitha, who's now working in Boston on designing college campuses, graduated with a degree in architecture plus urban design. And this is the sort of really at core of what we're trying to do. The architecture profession today has completely changed. It's integrated on all levels. And it's really important that our students leave ASU with the knowledge of development through facilities management. They could specialize in something, but having that range, knowing the full range of the kind of arc of the built environment is really key. And we think that our graduates are really going to, with that knowledge, be able to change the profession into which they enter. There are lots of ways to get involved at ASU. We have a number of really great student organizations. The first is NOMA, the National Organization of Minority Architects. This is a national organization. We have a local chapter here in Arizona. We also have the AIAS, which is the American Institute of Architecture Students. And we have a group that was actually founded here called LASO, which is the Latinx Architecture Student Organization. This is an organization that was founded in the program and is actually, it's born and bred here right in Arizona. It's not connected to a national organization. It's a very strong group locally. So our students often ask, what happens after I graduate? Well, we actually start thinking about that while you're in school. So if you want to go into practice, we want to help you get there. We have an internship as part of the program. That's a required internship, and we have folks who are going to help you get a job. One of the nice things being in Phoenix and being so big and being here for so long is that our program has alumni in many, many offices. And so when I walk into an office, it's actually great to see all the sort of ASU folks who are there. It's a great, it's really nice to sort of walk in and have everybody say, oh yeah, I was at ASU in, 72 or whatever it might be. So that's always a good thing. We have something called Studio Night, and Studio Night is where we have local practices come in and meet our students. We're doing it virtually this year. But the idea is that we pair up students with practitioners, and so they're actually getting access to the professional world straight away. And what's nice is you can actually do a lot of different things with an architecture degree. You can become an architect, designer, contractor, facilities manager, BIM manager, energy modeler. You could become a developer, and my goal is that we have more folks in government with a degree in architecture. It would be great to have a president of the United States as an architect someday. So lots of things that you can do with a degree. So we do think our program is in line with the mantra of ASU being innovative. ASU is #1 in the US for innovation and has been for a number of years. We are trying to innovate in our program so that students can continue to do so when they're in practice. So this is the process to get to apply. It's actually very simple. There's two parts. One is to the ASU Graduate College. You put together your application with official transcripts. GRE scores are not needed. We do not need those to be submitted. And the second part is a slide room submission. And so electronic portfolio, statement of purpose, and 2 email addresses, or 2 email recommenders, email addresses for recommenders, need to be included. And just so you know, we're continuing to accept applications until February 15th, 2021. So we're still open for business if students want to apply for next year. right. Some contact information. Corey Sisko, who's on the call, is our graduate coordinator. Christy Brown, who's not on the call, also works with Corey. And we have a general email, which is designgrad@ASU, that goes to both Corey and Christy. So any questions about the process, you can reach out to either of them. It'd be great if you want to follow us on social media. We're all over social media. I should also mention that the design school, which is the school we sit in, architecture sits in, also includes interior architecture, industrial design, visual communications, and landscape. So we have a whole host of other programs within the design school. And really our students in the graduate program come from a variety of different backgrounds, both architecture and other degrees. All right, with that I'm going to wrap up and then open it up to any questions. If you have any, I'm going to stop the sharing. And we'll, I think I see some questions in the chat as well. All right.
Lovely.
So Phil, did I miss any questions? I see the chat is moving along.
I've just been dropping additional information into the chat through your presentation, so I don't think we've missed any questions thus far. Anyone who does have questions, the Q&A is certainly open and happy to answer those as they come along. A couple of the notes that I was just adding, the founding student president of LASSO, the organization that you mentioned, is now an M.Arch student in her final year who joined us from Venezuela and has been a really amazing student through both her undergraduate studies in architecture and her M.Arch. I was mentioning that both our M.Arch and our MS.Arch programs are STEM designated, so students have access to the 24-month OPT extension beyond the 12 months of standard OPT. We also have some other, 3 other STEM designated programs in the design school. Happy to answer any questions you might have about those. And I was also just mentioning that while our current applications are going to be open until February 15th, we will likely roll them from month to month thereafter. So if anyone has a student approach them looking for an M.Arch program or other design-related programs, please do still contact us. We're happy to try to admit them as late as we can, bearing in mind that visas and I-20 processes are going to be the biggest time constraint there.
Yeah, that's right. And just to add, obviously, the slightly later deadlines between ASU and Kaplan that are all in place that are a little bit later that normally take us to start of the summer pretty much as normal. Yeah. I think Paloma's just asked a question about the portfolio for the program and maybe some hints and tips as to what you would expect to see from a portfolio.
Sure. So the portfolio is a requirement for both the 3-year and the 2-year. The 2-year should show work that you put together in your undergraduate. And if you're coming from an architecture program, that would be your projects that you worked on. If you're coming from landscape or interiors, same thing. So any undergraduate work that you've done, any professional work that you've done would be helpful. If you're coming into the 3-year program, you typically won't have a background in a design field. So we are pretty open to what you put into that. There's a famous story of a chef putting together a portfolio around how you build sushi, which was pretty great. But really, it should just show your creative work. One of the things we really look for is to understand the student's story. Where are they coming from? Where have they been? So anything creative that can express how you're, where you're coming from, what your story is really what we're looking for. Keeping a portfolio clean, not trying to jam too much stuff into the portfolio is helpful. And keep in mind we're looking at these things relatively quickly, so being able to communicate in a concise manner is much appreciated.
And Corey just pasted a link into the chat, which is a website or webpage with resources for new and prospective students. Within there are a number of webinars about many of our different academic programs, about the STEM designated programs particularly, and there's one webinar that we put together in the fall that is all about tips for portfolios. I think there's 7 tips there. that are meant to be helpful. Going back to what Mark was saying about three-year applicants, students who might be coming in with a non-design background, the letter of intent or the statement of purpose becomes more important there. Not that it's not important for two-year applicants, but it's a more important tool for three-year applicants who don't have a design background. And it's always really great when students are applying and really have done a bit of initial research into ASU and maybe are specifically interested in that sort of architecture plus concept, that they're interested in coming to ASU to study architecture, but they're also interested to learn more about construction management, about real estate development, about planning, or about sustainability. We see a lot of applicants that are particularly interested in architecture and sustainability, and that's always a sort of rich addition to any cohort of students.
That's great.
So the question about online, it's a good question. Because of everything that's been going on in the world, we are actually, we made a decision last year to launch an online program. So in fall 2021, we will be launching an M.Arch program. We're going to begin with the 3-year cohort first and then roll it out year by year. ASU has a very robust online platform, and they've done a lot of research around this. There is interest in an online M.Arch program. There's only 5 that currently exist in the United States. So that will be rolling out with a similar application process, but a different timeline. It will be a little bit later, and the marketing for that is actually started. It's in progress right now. So we'll have more information on the website relatively soon, next couple of weeks actually. But that will start fall semester 2021. And I should also mention, just to be really clear about this, at ASU, when you have an online degree, your diploma doesn't look any different. And so the online degree in architecture is exactly the same as the on-the-ground coursework. So when you graduate, you will get an ASU degree. It's accredited. It's the same degree. Your diploma doesn't look any different. So there's no separation. We have our full-time faculty involved in the teaching of that as well. So it's actually just a kind of building out of what we currently offer. So there's no difference in the delivery other than the fact that it's asynchronous and online.
That's great. A couple of small sort of different trivia points it might be of use. Corey, you put over a question that's part of the sort of quest that everyone's doing. For those that are here, maybe they'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And I think also quite an interesting point, if anyone has a picture of it to share or something like that. But I think the inception of ASU Gamage is quite interesting as well for others for people here to hear about if they don't know about it already.
Do you want me to talk about that, or should we? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So Phil, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the story I heard about Gamage is kind of crazy. Frank Lloyd Wright obviously had a school here. He was based here for a number of years. But he had this really strange relationship with the city of Scottsdale and Phoenix. No one really liked him very much. He wasn't very friendly. He didn't get a lot of work here. He has a couple of homes. There are stories of him like driving into gas stations, having people fill up his car, and then he says thanks and he leaves. He wasn't exactly the friendliest guy. But the president of ASU a number of years ago saw drawings of an auditorium space that he really liked. And Frank Lloyd Wright had done a number of projects for Baghdad. He actually designed a new university. He redesigned the city, and it was all based around a circle. And there was a kind of number of different proposals, massive proposals. And the auditorium is a big circle as well. And the president at that time, whose name is Gamage, very much liked the drawings, liked the project. And so he took the project and literally dropped it into ASU. And so a project that was designed for Baghdad now sits on the corner of ASU's campus. It's a crazy kind of story.
Yeah, and in an interesting way, the design really wasn't changed at all. It was a design that had been made for a monarch in Baghdad at the time. There was a change of power that occurred in Iraq, and the project sort of went on the shelf. And that connection to that former ASU president, Grady Gamage Sr., after whom the auditorium is named, essentially Wright sort of pulled it out and used with very minimal adjustments a design that had already been designed for a different context and dropped it into our context here, which is just an interesting phenomena. Grady Gamage's son, Grady Jr., is actually a real estate developer and development lawyer who is quite active here in the Valley and has a formative role in the built environment today, has a building really close to ASU, and has particularly been a strong proponent of the launch of a design build program that Mark and a couple of our faculty colleagues have been initiating over the last year or so.
Thanks, Phil. Mark. That's great. And then, yeah, Corey, the sort of trivia queue that everyone's been scratching their heads at about Professor John Yellett.
Did you share the question already, Martin?
Yeah, the question's on the site, and everyone's like, what is the answer? So I think attendees today might get the sneak preview, and everyone else will have to watch the recording to get the points.
Yeah, so I'll just review the question, the trivia question one more time, which actually Mark shared with us. So it's Professor John Yellett was a pioneer in solar energy. He invented a solar furnace that could cook meals using power from only the sun. What did he cook in it every year? And the answer is a birthday cake.
There was John Yellett was in the tradition of ASU of this interest in sustainability and passive environmental systems, and a number of folks here literally since the 70s have been involved in that. And there was a house that was on campus called the Yellett House, and it was literally wired for all these different tests. It was, monitoring their environment in a number of ways. And I actually have a photo of Yellett in Greece. He made a cake at a conference. During the conference, he made a cake on this basically a solar oven. Cooked the whole thing. It was great. And so it's very funny because there are all these like proper looking, professorial types around this like weird contraption, and a birthday cake's in the middle of it. It's great. So anyways.
Nice one, Mark. All right. Very good. Well, I think if there's no more questions or anything to discuss, we can maybe just round things to a close here. I think a big thanks, Mark, Corey, and Phil for putting together the session for today. And we'll make sure that those of our agent colleagues from around the world who are tucked up in bed in Japan and Korea and wherever they may be get a recording of this, so that they can watch that in their own time and get to know a bit more about architecture at ASU.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin.
Thanks very much, everyone.
All right. Have a great day.
Appreciate it. Thanks all.
Thank you.